Tommy Stevens. Oh, this is a great question. Tommy Stevens says, is it better to follow a costume requirement list like the 501st or Mandalorian Mercs? Or, okay, let me describe what that means. If you want to go out and get a Stormtrooper costume, you can go get one from a bunch of different sources. There are official sources, there are unofficial sources. They don't necessarily track to the most accurate. But if you want a troop with the 501st, with a group that goes and troops, they have helpful lists of what their minimum requirements are for trooping in your costume accurately. So they'll tell you which vendors make the pieces, which parts need to be dead on, and which parts there's some fungibility with, depending on what movie you're doing. And so what they want to know is it better to follow one of these costume requirement lists for building one's first cosplay, or is it better to trial and error one's way through said build without any real guidance? I reject that it is one or the other. I also don't tend to begin a costume by thinking that I'm going to be slavish to one of these lists of requirements. In fact, I usually don't look at those lists until after I have built my first pass at a costume. So I didn't look at that list for ESB Boba Fett until after Freddie and I had assembled 95% of the costume. But that's not to say that I trial and error my way through the build without any guidance. I look at tons and tons of build threads on all sorts of different building forums. I look at YouTube videos of people's show and tells. I look at I do tons and tons of research. And I make my own lists of the parts that I need, of the pieces that I need. I'm working on a new costume right now that Mark Dubois just laid on me. And it's great because he's given me like 80% of a great costume that's unfinished and unpainted. And in order to wrap my head around it, I came in the day after he gave it to me and I laid it out on brown paper. I took individual pictures of each piece just so I could wrap my head around how many parts are in this costume, how many different ways they need to be attached to each other, how are they attached in the real movie, how do cosplayers do their own attachments. So I'm currently making lists like that. I have not yet gotten to a list of aliens, colonial marines, cosplayers, and their minimum requirements for a suit, because frankly, those lists tend to use verbal shorthands that I don't know yet. And so then I'm spending all this time trying to figure out what these lists mean because they're referring to pieces and parts that I don't have in my head. So I don't think those are great places to start. But once you've put in a bunch of research and you're like, all right, so just to walk you through my research process, when I am gathering information on a costume like this, and I'm not going to tell you what costume it is, I do a bunch of Google image searches. I even also go, after I feel like I've reached the end of Google image search, I go search on Bing, I go search on Flickr, and I just start downloading images, just tons and tons and tons. I sort by size, so I gather large and big ones first. And I just load up the folder with images. Then I open up that folder, and now I'm looking at all these different images, and I can see that there are some that are the full suit, some that are just the front part of the suit, some that are just the arms of the suit, some that are just how the attachments work, some about the electronics. And then I start making separate subfolders. And then I sit there and go through those subfolders. Okay, I need more pictures of this part of the suit. Okay, neck rings. Okay, gloves, boots. What kind of boots do people use with these? Oh, turns out I don't agree with those. I'm going to try these boots. So I do a ton of infrastructure building as I'm gathering information about a new costume. Then once I've done that, now when I go to one of those lists, it makes sense to me. And then I can make choices based on what's possible or feasible. Frequently, I mean, there are aspects to some of the 501st trooping costumes that are very expensive to get right. There's just no inexpensive way to do it. And that can be a holdup. And that may mean that you feel like, I guess I'm not going to troop with them for a while. Or I'll just have to end run and do work extra hard at this thing rather than spend my way out of that problem. So, Tommy, I hope that was instructive. James Morgan. I can't believe you're asking me this question. This is great. If you were to have a unique custom sword made to your specifications, what kind of sword would you choose? Would you try for a historical design or something more fantasy-based? something's been happening in my head, and it's good. And what it is a point of view about a sword. And it started about 3 or 4 months ago, and I've just been letting it kind of percolate in there. And this is a phrase that's really important to me right now in my thinking about creativity, is point of view. I define making, I worked hard to come up with what I consider the broadest possible definition of making. And the definition I have is, to be a maker is to use your point of view to make something that didn't exist. And whether that's a video, a poem, a dress, a table, a car, when you use your point of view to make something that didn't exist, you're doing something important, really important. My whole life is devoted to this practice. But the amazing thing about a point of view is you don't always know what it is. In fact, much of the time, I don't know exactly what my point of view is on the project that I'm tackling. So I localize my point of view to the thing that I'm tackling in that project. And eventually this shape appears. And eventually I do have a point of view about the project. But this is why I say follow the process, not the plan. The plan is your picture of what the end product is going to be. The process is the means by which you bring it about. And if you are open to the process, I submit that what you initially think you're going to make doesn't look anything like what you finish with. In fact, I'm just going to say, for me and my personal experience, all of the best stuff I have ever built shocks me with how different it was than my original conception of what it would look, feel, and be like. So one of the best parts about a point of view is being surprised by it. Seriously, how many times have you looked at a room and thought, oh my God, I just realized I hate that chair. I want to just move that chair out of this room. That's, to me, like what it is to be surprised by your point of view, to look at something and realize, oh, I do have thoughts about that. So I have started having thoughts about the shape of a sword blade that would be mine. And it's not based wholly on a historical blade, and it's not based wholly on a fantasy blade. And it is pretty straightforward as blades go, but it has a relationship to it has a shape, and that shape is compelling me. And so I'm just letting it sort of percolate in my head and thinking, yeah, I'll probably make this out of aluminum. I'll probably try and make this out of aluminum. And then I may try and make it out of steel. I'm not sure if it's a hollow ground or a convex ground. I'm not sure what kind of real fuller it's going to have. I don't know whether it's going to be one-handed, two-handed, bastard sword. I don't know what the pommel looks like just yet. I just know how the relationship between the blade's thickness and its length, and that image is I'm finding the image compelling. Each time I go back to it, I'm finding it compelling. So this is, you've asked the perfect question at the very germinative part of the process for me in a new thing, because it was really exciting to me. I've built a dozen swords now over time since Peter Lyon at Weta Workshop taught me how to grind my first one. I now look at that one and I can just see how young and fresh I am. And seriously, it's not like I've made a ton of progress. I don't know that I'd be qualified to be Peter Lyon's assistant today, but I've built enough swords that now I do have a point of view on sword shapes and their weight and their look and all of that. And that's exciting to me. When you have a point of view, that's when something exciting is going to happen.